Uh,
You still haven't
Still
heard?
waiting. Yeah,
I haven't heard it either. Hey Neil, have you met James? James Neil? Neil
Y-
James?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. We met. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good. Uh, yeah, I guess that's kind of a bummer. So James, we were talking about the WISP paper. We were supposed to hear back from it today. Neil is what submitted it. Or at least we think he.
I check my Gmail like almost thousands time. It's like record high today. Like okay,
Check your spam folder.
I almost check everything. I can check it again. It's like.
Right.
So guys, I might drop off in between. So pardon me.
Okay, that's fine. Um,
So this is
yeah.
James's call. So want to start on over to him. Jay Silver has also joined, but for all intents and purposes, this is to start building or start getting a handle on some of the content that we have. So James, without further ado, I will hand the mic to you.
Okay, so basically the purpose of this, we have the Slack channel content management, and there's actually, I mean, there are a number of names we could go by. We could go by data, information, knowledge management, content management. They all kind of are equally valid. So I shared this link to our wiki. Knowledge management is what I called that, but I can make a couple other what is it? Not disambiguation pages, but redirect links to get all those terms together, all linking to this one page. And that sort of sums up what we're doing. Is we're trying to organize things so that people who are new and people who have been here for a while but have been working on different parts of the project can find their way in terms of getting access to new information. So I'm just going to kind of walk through this wiki page really quickly, and we'll start right up at the top here of the knowledge model, and there's a link in the middle of that to there's a much longer Wikipedia article about it. And the basic idea is you start with these very raw, almost meaningless pieces of sort of the tiniest bits of information, which is a datum in the singular, but data in the plural, and the pursuit of science is all about taking, generating data or accessing data somehow, and analyzing it and turning it into information. And information is, something like a fact. Here, my example here is liquid water can turn into ice. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't necessarily have a lot of meaning, but when you have enough facts, enough information, you can sort of process that or contextualize it into knowledge, and with knowledge you can actually make decisions. That's sort of the basis of research. Is you're taking your knowledge, you're building it, and you're developing questions, which lead you back to like the search for data. So it's sort of this cycle, and then actually, if you do end up going to the this Wikipedia article, there's even this other step which I kind of left off because I'm not sure it's quite relevant to us, but some people even put wisdom above knowledge, which is sort of the ability to have perspective, and it's that final step. But maybe we're not so concerned about wisdom, quite at this stage. But or perhaps our leadership board, I guess, would be the group to really be concerned with wisdom. But anyway, so in terms of generating knowledge and getting everyone on the same page, and getting these ideas flowing, and coming up with ideas for research questions, that knowledge is key. So right now we have the wiki, we've got Meteor, and then we have Slack, and those are sort of our three sort of most interconnected. I guess we also have GitHub, but that's kind of sort of a standalone thing. But these three main uh, sort of platforms are how we've been organizing and communicating and sharing all this information, or and potentially turning it into knowledge. So um, what I wanted to focus on is, because I think Slack is, like, we can't really do too much about Slack. We can sort of control what channels we have, and I think Rajan's been doing a great job of archiving the channels that are less active or that we're not really using as much. So there's not a lot of control we have over that. But the wiki is something that wikis are really powerful tools, and it's something that we can definitely, we're not using it to its fullest extent. So I'll go into that in a little bit. Do we have any questions, or does anyone want to chime in yet?
Yeah, I think I do agree with your point of view. Uh, so from content management perspective or knowledge management perspective, I see a couple of challenges where Slack is more of like synchronous communication, which is good for like sharing idea and then sharing your thoughts in real time. However, there is a one more step in knowledge retention, which is storing the knowledge. And once you store it, then sleeping over it to understand what did we store, and then when time comes, retrieving it and use it. So I think we are kind of failing not only on Slack, even on Wiki, to retrieve it and then use it. So I do see we are producing content like week by week. We have this analysis of so many things. However, I don't see a paragraph that tells me summary of overall findings for that week. For example, let's say reputation system, we have so many papers, but there's no single idea which is coming out of it, or two or three ideas that we can archive somewhere where new person will jump in and he can look at it and see, okay, this is what these guys have done, and then if he is interested, he can go and read more about it. So that executive summary, so-called, is somewhere missing in that context. For Slack, Jay Silverhead did great job, like putting links to from Slack to Wiki. So he has archived so many references. So
Right.
kudos to him on that, because there are so much of information which are going back and forth, back and forth. So so if there is any way to like make it much more accessible through Wiki, or I think Wiki should be good enough, because we don't want one more storage of knowledge, right? Like if you add one more, it's going to be very hard for people. Even I'm finding Wiki these days very hard to follow. So
yeah, clearly we need to get the dev team to build a better platform, because they've got a lot of free time.
Right.
yeah.
Well, these are exactly the issues that we're trying to address, and the other thing is we want to address them in a measured way, so we're not. I mean, we could get everyone on the whole research group cleaning up the wiki, and we'd have a perfect, polished, beautiful wiki, but then none of our other work's getting done. So we have to kind of. It's important to do it in such a way that we're not detracting from all of our other goals.
True. I agree.
So that's there's a balance to be found, I think.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions or comments so far before I go into a little bit, just some of my ideas for how to build out the wiki?
I mean, would we be in a position then to scrape data, or because there's a lot of data that's pinned, as Neil has mentioned. There are links all over the place. So, is this effort then going to embrace the data within the data within the various streams?
Honestly, I see this as being a fairly hands-on kind of project. I can't think of any way. I mean, the thing is that like Jay Silver's been doing a great job, as Neil mentioned, of collecting all these links. This.
And you know, because Jay Silver's a robot.
So maybe he's scraping then, right? If it's a robot, then it's called scraping. If it's a person, it's curating. Yeah, well, so the reputation system group did a great job as well, where they kind of took. It's interesting because they didn't take it all the way to like the idealized form, but they were clearly building in that direction. So we've got this great list of the papers. We have all these sort of breakdowns, pros and cons, descriptions. It's just a matter of going that final step and
Okay,
breaking
so
out those little digestible pieces.
one quick announcement here about the paper.
Dun, 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 dun.
So the reviews will be announced on August 13th.
What?
So
Oh,
they have delayed it. Yeah.
okay.
I hit a
Well,
record high checking my email today so many times. But okay.
all right. Well, that at least we didn't not get it, right? Did I say that right? Would be better to find out today that we did get it, but yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so the next step in the building the wiki, sort of building it out. I mean, we already have the wiki, but what can we do to sort of expand on what we have and take advantage of all these great features that wikis have? So the first thing, and I listed these in sort of roughly the order that we would want to do them. The first thing to do would be to sort of subdivide what we have there. So we want to, if we have any like sort of monster pages, like I think even our main page is a little, it has a bit much. Like we have for instance, we have all of our summer meetings and the slides from them and all the summer milestones. It's good to have these all together, but they could potentially be sort of broken off into their own sort of list pages. But then there's also the question of, well, everyone already knows that this is where it is, so maybe it's actually not worth it. So that might be worth considering for all of these. Any changes that we make is like, are people used to this at this point, and so we shouldn't change it. But if we were to go back and look at it from the beginning, we might sort of break out some of these things into their own pages. So so lists, I'm thinking right now of the reputation system list with all the papers. That could be kind of abbreviated, and then each paper could sort of have its own page. And I'm pretty sure actually a lot of the papers do have sort of longer expanded ideas. So if there's redundancy there, then we want to kind of we want to make the list shorter if there's any redundant stuff in there. We want to take it out from there and leave it in the individual page descriptions. The other thing we want to do with subdividing is if we have a page that has multiple sections and the sections are growing, at a certain point we want to break these sections into their own pages, because it's obvious, it's something that's been growing that there's a lot of information about. It deserves to kind of live on its own and potentially have its own sort of subsections. So that's not such a science at this point. It's a matter of being able to look at a page and see, well, this page is too long, and have it, sort of going off of your gut feeling of recognizing that you're not, someone who comes in who doesn't know a lot about this is not going to be able to digest it quickly. It's going to take them a little bit too long to read through it, because the goal is to have people come in, read something, not be intimidated by it, and then if they want to read more, then there's a link there for them to bring them into the next page. So that's step one, is splitting up some of these bigger pages that we have. Step two is for new information that we're adding. um, we want to process that. So again, to go back to our reputation system example, we have all this great information that we generated about these papers that everyone read, and it's not. There's one more step, as I see it. There could, I guess, even be more than another step. But we want to process it, look for the themes in all of these papers, and pull them out. So one thing that I've linked to it. It's not actually a page yet, but it would be good to build a page. Is the idea of reputation inflation. That's something that I think a couple of the papers at least touched on. I think one of the papers was specifically focused on reputation inflation. And so when you have a keyword like that that's appearing, it has, I think we call it, was a literary precedence. So as a librarian, you're not supposed to come up with words for things. You're supposed to wait for all the researchers for the literature to come up with the word, and then you can say, okay, well, this is a thing. You know, there's enough evidence that this is sort of its own topic because other people have been using this term that, okay, now it gets its own subject heading or whatever. So reputation inflation, it's been getting thrown around. It's something that's been a big topic in the meetings that we had, yesterday and on Monday. So that might get its own page, and then we make it relatively short. We give it everyone who doesn't know what it is a quick intro to it, maybe a little bit more in depth, sort of longer body section, and then all the links that they need in the relevant places, or relevant parts of the content, to get them to the really detailed, really in-depth knowledge or information that they need. And then I mentioned links, so that feeds into the last part of building out the wiki is linking. So when we have pages that, and it's okay for assignments. A lot of the assignments or the milestone submissions don't necessarily link to each other that much, and I think that's all right. But when we're trying to build content and build out these connect all these ideas to this big knowledge base that we're developing, it's really important to link to everything else and make sure everything else is linking to it that should be. So when you add a new page, or if you're looking through a page trying to edit it, you want to make sure that it's finding the relevant pages to it, and then also go to those pages and make sure they direct people back to the new page. And that way you can have a very browsable and kind of good sort of bite-wise process for people who are doing research or just kind of trying to use this sort of great reference tool that we've got. If we don't do that, the alternative is using the search, and the problem with that is you kind of have to know what you're looking for already. So if you're just browsing, you can kind of serendipitously discover something that you didn't know about, and that's sort of like the power, browsing versus search. So we want to make it very browsable. We're trying to cater to the new people and to the people who haven't been part of that. So that's all I have to say about building for now, although I'm sure we'll have more to add to this. Do we have any questions? There's only one little last section about sort of the content, a little bit more review of the content, but anyone want to chime in or have anything to add?
Yikes, is what I had to say.
Sorry, that was a little bit much, maybe.
One of the things we can do is like have some kind of index on front page for different sections, so that people can
pick and choose, so we can guide folks. I mean, if we could do the.
So one thing, even like I recall when I was traveling a month ago, and I missed Saturday Hangout because I had a flight to catch. And what helped me to get on track was going through the Hangout, like Saturday Hangout, and then I got like idea of what's happening. But most of the folks, I think, if they are not, if they miss the hangout, then it becomes kind of harder for them to see what's going on, and they first try to go to Slack, and that's where confusion starts because Slack is kind of like running so fast. Then people get confused about what's exactly going on, and then on Slack somebody tells them go to uh, Trello, and then they get more confused about it because they only see the milestones but don't see the context. Um, so I think one somehow if we can bring that hangout summary or something like somebody can write like let's say 10 lines of summary. Okay, this was discussed, and this is the goal for the current week, and this is the context of it. Maybe that will help.
Hmm. Yeah, that's actually something that I should put in is like we need sort of like a meeting minutes basically. Um, I probably would be I mean, we have the recordings, but yeah, it does take time to go through, and um, maybe I've even seen sort of like collaborative note-taking things. I don't know if we want to add another tool to everything we've got already, but um,
There's definitely basis for some ideas. An awesome secretary. He's a big note taker. But I think that leads, to maybe some functional responsibilities that come into play. That someone, there's a secretary, or there's some meeting notes that are made. In addition, that someone maybe goes back through, through the YouTube video, double checks, and then starts cranking out some of the keywords. Because maybe it's not meeting notes so much; it's just taking all the keywords, so then they can be the hangout can be referenced into the body of the bigger piece of work.
Yeah, I think this is one fear of mine with this. Yep.
And even for our hangouts, right? Like for most of those, like we can have, okay, this will be discussed and this is the conclusion of it. And so we can kind of like see that each discussion is kind of leading to some kind of results or some kind of productivity. Like today's discussion, we can say, okay, we figured out a way of like organizing the knowledge, and which will help us to like make progress on different aspect of project, and it will also help us to like, okay, whoever is missing Saturday Hangout or people who are new, it will help them to get started. So, and here is a plan for that. So maybe some kind of structured template or something. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think is better?
Yeah, I think that a template would be good because it would just help people. It wouldn't feel like you're making it up as you go. I think any kind of structure we can give will be very useful.
So did anyone ever read The Professor and the Madman?
Who?
I don't. What's?
It's the story of the creation of the OED. And so it's a fascinating story. It's about an American that ends up in a insane asylum in the UK, and he ends up being the cornerstone of what becomes the Oxford English Dictionary.
Right.
So this process strikes me as something very similar. Not that we have any madmen amongst us, but the process by which we're going to be, delving into some entomology, and we're going to have to get to some cornerstone of ideas. This is, I think there's potentially, if we fold some other opportunities either for research or for reinvigorating these ideas, that this process, if we distribute it, I think you start with an index so that we can at least have a baseline. Okay, so here's pick your topics from this index. Go a little bit more. Because I think at the end of the day, there's going to be lots.
Getting a lot of.
Who's this? Neil. Yeah, it was Neil.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear what you were saying at the end there.
And I was just talking about that. As an exercise, I think there's clearly a. So it looks like, and Mr. Bernstein, the good doctor, has some things to add, so he can sort of pick up the slack and see what he's got. So we're going to free associate ourselves there. He can play the role of the professor and Professor Madman. The Gruden paper and its exhortation to that extended maybe talking about archiving. Really makes sense to document the processes. Well, that's right. That's interesting. That's a pretty cool irony, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's definitely where the value of the librarian comes in. Of course, the librarians often don't necessarily know what the researchers are. They have to try to catch up a lot of times.
That's true, and there's some partnerships I certainly think that could be done here. But I would imagine though that's let's figure out how we can make this work.
And one thing, if you guys have any suggestions or ideas about it, which would be really helpful. So we can integrate GitHub also with these ideas. So here is my one of the way we used to do things, right? Like we have some. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say some worker or requester come up with a great idea, or he thinks that this feature will make our platform better, right? Yep. So how can we translate that into a requirement, right? And then put it on the GitHub as a need to be prioritized issue. So if you go to GitHub, there is a tags that I had created to manage the GitHub's issues, so that we can prioritize, we can look through which category it falls into, whether design, backend, or front end. So the information on Slack or information on Wiki, if there is a way to say, okay, somebody comes and say, this feature, like chart feature, looks really good on Upworks, and it enables workers and requesters to have that initial communication, right? So that's a great idea, but it gets lost on Slack or it gets lost on Wiki and never reaches to the requirement, right? So how can we capture those, put them as a requirement, and then create GitHub issues from them? So whoever will be the working on engineering side. So there is no distinction between engineering or this, because people who are in engineering are also doing research and so on, and design and all those things. But if you can find out a way of making sure these ideas don't get lost in the sea of information, then that would be good too. Then we can translate them into concrete requirement, and then person who is also suggesting that feature will think about, okay, how this will look like in the system, in our system, in our platform. So that's one of the areas that I think we have a lot of improvement to be done, kind of.
So Neil, I think there's an intrinsic value to having the crowd go back through this and execute this process. I mean, they're going to reinvent,
right.
They're going to learn. Mm-hmm. It's going to have a stimulating factor.
True.
There's tons of volume there, though. Is there a way through NLP or some other maybe bigger data tools that could help facilitate maybe the organization and the
I mean, we can write our own, but like the simplest way of handling it is like, I have some idea for feature and I go to the Excel sheet and I just put it there, and I say okay, and then whoever is working on that part, like design or engineering or research or those people, they say okay, how important it is, and let's prioritize it depending on number of people we have in our team against the current priorities. So what that does is your idea is still locked in, it is still stored somewhere. It is not lost, because most of the time on Slack discussions, I keep seeing like same discussions repeat, most again,
Mm-hmm.
again, again, and which is fine, but
No, it's
we
not.
can kind of
It's
uh,
not.
no, I mean, as
Creates a
long
lot
as we
of
kind of
noise.
like make progress on it, right? Like we share the thought, and then what should be the next step? Like we move to the next step. But if we go in circles, I don't. I think we need to find out a way to break that circle and make progress,
Agreed.
so that I like to share ideas, and then take them to the constructive way so that we move further
Mm-hmm.
in a better way. Otherwise, what happens, like we just create. So I believe there are three things: raw data, right? Then analyzing that data and kind of like creating the information, right? From information, extracting the knowledge, and once you have the knowledge, filtering out the wisdom from that knowledge, and that's the information flow for me. Until and unless I don't reach to that wisdom part, the research cycle is not complete, right? Like no matter how much data we have, information we share, ideas we share, most of the time I feel I don't feel satisfied about it until and unless you don't find the wisdom. Like okay, yes, this is the point where that will help us to establish trust and power in our system, and then that clear path through that data, through that information, through that knowledge, it's very hard to see most of the times. Either it's because of communication, either it's because the way communication happening, or things like that. So I think there is a much better way of doing it. Uh,
So,
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 but
so
any,
Neil, James, are
uh-huh.
you guys suggesting then that we should have, some SMEs that would own, subject matter experts? Then they would kind of be the curator or do the legwork for a particular area of, the management system.
I think uh,
So one thing that this is actually reminding me of is M. Kemball shared
Honest. Yeah.
what was it, deliberatorium? Did either of you get to take, or did I thought that was a very interesting way of kind of sharing ideas, and then also potential or problems actually. So
okay, guys, I
uh,
might drop out. I'm a dropout. Okay, I'll talk
Are you okay, Neil?
okay,
soon.
all right, take care.
All right, thanks, Neil.
um, well, so one thing that I don't know, I'm pretty sure you saw it, Trigva, but
Yeah.
the deliberatorium.
Yeah. Yeah, Mohammed and I talked a little bit about that, and what was surprising to me is that article is 7, 8 years old. Heard no. I looked and I could not find a platform that's built along those parameters.
Right.
'Cause it's very much patterned along the lines of this discussion, but it seems to almost need it's got an active component to it that I thought it was intriguing, but a lot of the content and a lot of the data management systems that I've been looking at that are commercially built, they're very generic. Nothing that I think we could leverage to advance this agenda or even that agenda. Um,
Right.
so it was that was a little disappointing, but I think philosophically it aligns very well to what you're talking about.
So I think we could even try to. This is in the last section of the knowledge management page there,
Yeah.
but I think we could potentially try to emulate that on the wiki, just by. I mean, it'd be kind of trust based because of this. Anyone can edit, but I think we're a fairly trustworthy group, and So if someone has, we can list all of our problems. People can try to find the appropriate layer and add a solution, and then there can be little sort of sub-discussions, and I don't think I mean, I guess it depends how big these pages get, so we'd have to try it out and see, but
I think the idea is that if people have access to them, they will get bigger. I think we are a kind of group that if there was already steady access and some best practices put in play, I mean, like what Jay Silver did kind of on his own, not kind of, on his own, I think that could be emulated. I think most people didn't continue to follow suit just because the irony is that the system was still so convoluted. I think if as a group we made a commitment to this and made a big show of it and standardized the practice, so there were a set of rules. Every time you do this, you have to do this. Every time you do this, you have to do that. And there was a curator that ensured that there was some data integrity. I think I think we'll have high user adoption on this. It's just a matter of you see the forest, you see the trees. Can us start building that index right off the bat that just itemizes and shows, okay, here's the big problem we have. It's huge for one person, but if we break this down and start parsing it out, it's potentially a little more manageable.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do. We need to, maybe next time we're trying to make a decision, I think I'll try to come up with like a little bit of a sort of formalized instructions for how to do a deliberatorium on a wiki page.
Maybe mock one up. I think that would be pretty cool. Then in the interim, how can we build this index? How can we have then a single point of contact that's, regardless of how big it is, we can compartmentalize it, but that could be our start for collecting and collating.
Yeah. Oh, I just heard from Rajan. Maybe he can join.
Sweet.
Let me send him the link.
Cool.
Here we go.
So if we can just continue to reaffirm that process that you and Jay Silver were working on, I think that'll go a long way to maintaining it.
Yeah.
Then there's, as you and Neil were kind of hinting at, and if Jay Silver was talking, I'm sure he would also add that I think there's a good research opportunity here. The whole dissemination of knowledge, maybe doing some NLP work or clustering around ideas, ideation. I think that strikes to one of the items that we're eventually going to touch on the OpGov side is contributions, how people are engaged. Because ultimately, if we're going to build a leadership board that's kind of decentralized, if that is an end goal, but if you have some people that are going to self-sort, I'd be curious to see, sexy ideas. Oh, excuse me, hold on a second. I got to get my wife.
Okay. Well, everyone's left. It's just me. And I think you two are both muted. Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. She's just coming back from work, or actually school.
All right.
So I was just kind of chiming on about was basically building another big chunk of research on this particular process. That how on the positive side, how ideation and leads to clustering, and how people self-sort and see what ideas really attract attention, how ideas get disseminated through this particular crowd. In addition, that in Muhammad's work, and I think just parenthetically or anecdotally, there's this whole concept of the signal to noise ratio when it comes to kind of brainstorming or spitballing ideas, that there's a significant amount of churn that is part of the thought process, but a lot of it, I think, could be mitigated if folks were accessing work that had already been done, or were engaging a narrative or the literature. I must stop. It's Rajan.
Hello.
Dun, 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 dun. I was just waxing on about a research project, but since you're here, we would much rather hear your dulcet tones.
Yeah, James just suggested that he was considering doing some like content management and like how does things go, where do they go, and those kind of things, and yeah, and maybe I can give some thoughts as well. So yeah, so I think so far we have a main homepage, right? Crowd Research Stanford Review, where like I index all the meetings, all the presentations, videos there. And then we had a separate page where we had all these self-organized meetings links, and with the topic. So like whenever, for example, Alison Trigua or Saif or others, so whenever they conducted meetings, like they had their links in there. And then we started getting a lot of papers being shared, like Jay Silver and M. Kambal. So like they've been very good at finding relevant papers, but there was like all this discussion happening with papers getting lost in this entire thing. So we started collecting those, and we created a page I think called Related Works or something like that. And so like we started having those on that. Now all of these links are indexed from the main homepage. So if you go down below, we have all of these links which are of importance to us. And then we had all of these weekly ideas, which are on the Meteor site, and all the Meteor sites are being archived. So like if you go 2S or like 1S, these are for summer, and for the spring we had just one, for example, crowdresearch1.meteor.com, crowdresearch2.meteor.com. So it was like indexed through that. So we can do is to kind of like create a collection of all these Meteor links as well, because they're archived, and like you have to actually go and do that URL thing, which is not very comfortable, I guess. So we can do that. Otherwise, I feel that we have been, I think Jay Silver has been doing a very good job at sort of whenever he sees a nice paper or relevant work out there, like he puts it on wiki pages. So that's how I think we've been managing. Recently I messaged on Slack saying that we shouldn't be using Trello for these kind of purposes, because Trello is mostly like these are the things we have to do sort of thing, and not necessarily a very nice communication medium. So we wanted to be Slack as the main communication medium, and Meteor as like for each sort of idea submission or each submission we have discussions as comments. But if we have like 3 things, that would be too hard to keep track of, and Trello does not allow disabling comments feature.
Right.
So yeah.
So one thing that we were talking a lot about was taking it kind of the next step beyond having these lists of resources and having actually making it kind of like articles actually on the wiki. So the example I keep using from this week was we were talking a lot about the reputation system, and something that kept coming up was the idea of reputation inflation. And if you, let's see here, if I do a quick search for reputation inflation on the wiki, I get a bunch of kind of
Yeah,
sort
wiki
of a
search is not a
sorted.
very useful. I haven't
Yeah.
found a wiki search to be very useful.
So, well, we wanted to. The thing is, like, that's a that's an important concept is like reputation inflation, and there are plenty of other important concepts that we have been stumbling across, and they are all referenced in a lot of these resources that we're coming that we're finding. Um, and so the question is like for someone who's new or for someone who's been working on a different part of the project,
Hmm.
instead it can be overwhelming, I think, to
Yeah,
basically like have to read through it, especially since someone else has already read through it.
right.
So we don't want to be duplicating work, and it's a lot of times reading doesn't, that's not work, but it does take time. So
Yeah.
if someone's willing to, if there are people who are willing to put forth a little bit of extra effort, it'll save everyone else a bunch of time by having these sort of digestible pages that kind of like, okay, this is what reputation inflation means. This is like the main points. This is the discussion that happens about it, and then it's all backed up. If you really want to dig in, this article, and this article are the places to do it.
Hmm.
Um, so that's something that we kind of like to do. And then I think right before you joined, we were also talking a little bit about sort of decision making a little bit and how to sort of, well, I guess it wasn't necessarily decision making. It was more about sharing ideas, um, and then I guess eventually deciding things. But more importantly, just making sure that all the ideas are being heard,
Yeah.
and the person who only submits like one thing every month, but it could be like a real gem. Like we don't want to lose that. So
Yeah.
how do we capture that and keep it from
Yeah.
getting lost?
So So I think Meteor has been doing a good job in terms of getting these kind of things. Um, like, for example, for example, X person came and he had a great idea, put it in Meteor. So it's there, like indexed, and then people vote or something. So like you have top results on the top, and so that is helpful. But I can totally understand like um, finding them is not easy. One thing which we can do is, as we talked of, was have like a wiki page where like all these Meteor links are indexed, and next to each Meteor link, we can sort of summarize like what were the topics of like what kind of topics were being discussed, or what are the top, or like we don't have to like sort of even like point out the titles or something. We can just give an overview that okay, like this Meteor link has ideas related to reputation scaffolding, reputation this, reputation that, and these kind of things. So like it, even when seeing like the long list of meteors, like it would be quite intuitive to find that if I am looking for this thing, I should go for that. Another approach is that we don't need to even like index it week by week. We can index them by topics. So for example, reputation systems was something discussed in the spring quarter, but it is being revisited. So instead of like having reputation system here and then here, like that doesn't make a lot of sense. So like reputation systems, like here's the list of like all the reputation systems thing here. I think Angela also did a bunch of work, and this time on the Trello board, I have like all of those links in place for reputation, whichever I could find, like from the old ones, the last one, the new one, and those kind of things. So I think that would be useful.
That would be also more than useful to be able
Yeah.
to tap into that, because that seems to be where there's a lot of noise that's
Yeah.
around, trying to find things, or I think there's a level of frustration when people say, we already discussed that, we've
Yeah.
arrived at a certain, we've moved the narrative, let's
Yeah.
pick it up there.
Yeah.
So I think that option of being able to collate based on a theme or a subject is
Yeah.
that would be a game changer for us.
Yeah. One thing we also like, there were moments when people would start creating Google Docs and started adding ideas. So like we started getting a lot of Google Docs, and it was really hard to manage that. And that is when I created that page for resources sort of thing. Um, I don't know like if recently it is being maintained, because I haven't been very active on maintaining that specific page. But that is again something like I have those Google Docs thing in there.
So Rajan, do you know? I mean, this is a very, as stated, it seems like it's a very manual process.
Yeah.
Do you know of any tools, or are there some programs that we can use that might help at somewhere, just to help kind of basket things a little bit, just to separate them out of the
Yeah, I think we can think of something like for coming weeks, but I don't think there's some tool which would like all these things we already have, which does extract and like creates a nice list or something. Like that would be hard. Like that is something like we might want to do manually. Like a piece of that, like I can take ownership of and like do it, and then some pieces someone else can, and like if so that is manually possible. But like I think this is asking for a place where we actually, when we find something or when we do something, like we start creating a list, or like a place where we can find all of that content, right? And so far, like we've been relying on Wiki, but I haven't. There's Asana. Asana is pretty good, but it's expensive. Like beyond six people or something, like you need to pay money. And what else?
40 tribes of 6.
Yeah.
Now, call me crazy. We're obviously focused on building the platform. You know, the platform as it exists between workers and requesters.
Right.
But you know, as the workers and requesters, you know, start generating dialogue, you know, and the product that they generate, I imagine we're going to want to hold on to some of that. Now, are we going to keep that in a GitHub? Or,
what kind of communication?
Well, you know, right now the platform that's being built, it's between the workers and the requesters.
Right.
So what we don't have is a platform to communicate between all the workers.
Like among the workers?
Yeah.
So I think that is what like open governance piece comes in, sort of. So like I think Nisha and other like Rekha Banu and other girls, like they're trying to get a forum integrated into the system, so that people can chat amongst each other. I think I'm assuming that it would have a real-time chat room sort of feature also. For example, like I recently used Upwork, and I really liked that there was not any concept of email per se. They had a chat-based interface. So like any communication happens, if the person is online on the other end, it becomes like a chat. And if the person is not online at the moment, it becomes like an email. And so and that was very convenient. It had a chat-like interface, yet it acted like an email if the other person is not online. So that was pretty cool. So
we can build in some of the functionality that we're looking at here into that sort of system as well.
Yeah.
Content management, that if they're still building it, perhaps you can direct them in our way, or vice versa. I
would assume that we don't have to build this thing from scratch. I'm pretty sure that there are existing pieces which we just need to like just Lego it in our system. And like, because chat, messenger, or like chat rooms, like these are so old technologies but yet so useful, that I'm sure like we can totally find something, either open source or buy something. Uh, yes.
Well, if you could send over the names of the folks then that are working on that, I think.
Yeah, I did actually. If you see the Trello board, I have mentioned their names
Great. Thanks.
there. Yeah. Also, the tool to consider, it is pretty cool. It's called, let me look for it. It's called Intercom. So I think Intercom has also an integration with Slack. So, by the way, one thing we can do is to sort of see. Um, so this is Intercom. So this like one thing we can explore is to improve the productivity via Slack itself. So Slack is pretty awesome in terms of like its integrations. And let me show you something. I had created a list. I think I have lost that list where I basically created links of all the integrations they have, which can be of use to us. So for example, they have all these integrations. And if you think that something would be useful, for example, for creating a list directly via Slack, for example, you remember that how we give bonuses or badges via Slack through Bonusly? Similarly, I've been thinking like maybe there's an integration where we just write a command. Like for example, we see an interesting link being shared on Slack, and we just say slash that app and that link, and it just gets pasted into there, and which we can later retrieve, right? That would be pretty cool.
That would be awesome. It would be a great time saver too.
Yes, and I'm sure like if we look into these things, if you can even I can check them out, we can possibly even if it's not specifically for a purpose, but if we can just like use it for this specific case, that'd be pretty cool. Like things are often made for different purposes. For example, Bonusly was made to give bonuses to employees and within a company, and that they can redeem and get like vacations and blah and like all of that. But we used it for a totally different purpose, right? So I think we can look into all of this long list, and if you think that there's something which we can use as something where I just enter something and it goes into a list or something, that would be quite useful. So give it a try if possible.
Rajan, you're doing a lot of you're observing the rats. You're doing the meta stuff. We're bantering around some ideas as we're digging into all this content, to looking at knowledge transfer, the dissemination of ideas to the crowd, looking at maybe some and some communities maybe spring up around certain ideas or certain keywords. Is that something? Would that fall under your domain, or would that be an interesting experiment for us to run since we are now in this domain? This to talk about the flow from an idea into knowledge or a best practice. The process James is discussing in the fall.
So I think we have been experimenting that in some way. So you've been there from the starting. So so James, for example, like when we started, we had one milestone per week, and we had different teams working together, working separately. Like so, teams worked together, but every team produced same content, basically deliverables to the same content, and then they voted on each other's ideas on like who did what, and then we sort of synthesized those kind of things. But as and when the project grew, we kind of realized that it would not be of the best use if every team was doing the same thing, and so we sort of started having a different type of dynamics where we had this goal, and then different teams worked on those similar goals. And so, sorry, So there were like multiple goals per week, and everybody chose whatever of their interests, and then they did that. But still, like there were multiple teams, 2 or 3 teams, not many, but 2 or 3 teams doing the same thing, and then we further ideated. And now what has happened is that there's one team per goal. So there's no like, first we had like teams names like Team Alpha, Team Beta, and etc. And so like we don't have that anymore. So
Better names than that, James. Okay, we were much more creative.
Okay, I trust you.
so like now we have goal-oriented teams. So like team dynamics have been evolving quite differently. One thing changed was that in the spring batch we required a team to form a team before applying. Like a single person team was not allowed. But what that caused was that people, just to apply, got their friends like for the sake of applying, and the moment there was some work, like those teams started drop off because those students were never interested in the first place. They were just dragged with their friends because they wanted to apply. And so in this summer we relaxed that part, and we were like, okay, like anyone with interest should be able to join with or without a team. So so yeah, like these are the dynamics we've been experimenting with. Is there something special in your mind, Trigwa?
I'm just looking for the flow of ideas. I think I've been using the word spitball, just kind of anecdotally. That is now starting to pick up a little bit of traction, and it's kind of piqued my curiosity as to, well, is it an interesting idea? I mean, Angela actually asked like the entomology, what it means. So I was, for an organization that we ultimately want to have a certain level of self-governance, I think that the dissemination of ideas, especially and the distinction between mundane ideas and the sexy, hot ideas, to see how people kind of collate around them or create communities around it. I don't know. There's the potential for it having some impact on the final product or the final configuration of what this team is like. And since we're in this build phase and we're actually now going in and looking at all this content, it seems like potentially a good time to maybe start. You may be doing it from a meta perspective, but from us to start maybe self-recognizing and having some self-awarenesses here around the power of ideas. I think the reputation system dialogue has been very interesting in that a lot of statements, not a lot of questions. And so the dynamic is changing a little bit. You see a fracturing ideas instead of a coalition of ideas, just because the process of thinking has changed a little bit. So again, I'm seeing all these random things that I'd very much like to see if we can quantify a little bit and see if I just be crazy or there's actually something there. So I went off on a little tangent there, but that's...
Yeah. So far for the dissemination of the ideas, it's mostly been Meteor, because it acts like a Reddit where we post things, and then we comment and vote. What, like, I don't know, like, if there's something else in my head apart from like peer review techniques, like we can do more concrete peer review pieces if you think that would help. So there's an interesting tool from Carnegie Mellon. If any one of you is interested, you might want to explore it. Let me share the link. It's called CrowdCrit. So basically, it was meant for students to critique each other's design in a design setup, but it can be used in the classroom or cases also. Like, if anyone is willing, feel free to explore this Quirrell app. I've played it for my research, but since I didn't have many people signed up, so like it was just me like acting like a student and exploring the interface and all of that, and then acting like a teacher. sort of. But
So
it
is this a reputation tool?
this is not a reputation tool. This is a feedback tool where like I can create a certain set of ideas, and the faculty or the organizer can design specific criteria on which people have to later vote. Or, for example, right now on Meteor, it is very random. Like people just vote or comment very free flow. There's not very structure in it. This one has a structure that this one like you can create for which task like you should give this um, this value, etc. One thing I think negative feedback which we had with respect to CrowdGrader, for example, you remember CrowdGrader, was that it had scores involved, and a lot of people didn't like scores. For example, people getting scores from their peers, they were like, oh, like I got 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, like who is this person like who can like judge me on this basis, or not very happy with like getting scores from peers if the score was bad, and that was causing
You're toning it down a lot too. There was people's
yeah.
dander got up.
Yeah. So then we kind of requested the creator of CrowdGrader to hide the scores from people. So even though if you give the scores, that is for the internal purpose only, and we don't show it to others. But by that time, I think people really outvoted that we don't want CrowdGrader at all. So like we never used it again. Um,
No one
but
missed
that,
it, that's for sure.
yeah.
Rajan, did you get to see? There's a link to something called the Deliberatorium.
No, I have not.
Okay, let me send that because that was something that I thought was kind of interesting. Basically, it would sort of pose a question or problem, and then it had this tree-like structure for answering where if you had an idea for a solution, you'd post that, and then people could up or down vote that, but they could also kind of bring in caveats or bring in sub-solutions. So like, this is a really quick example. It'd be like, oh, like we need to get groceries, and then it'd be like, oh, well, we could walk there, and then people could sort of like up or down vote, or we could take a car,
Yeah.
and then people could kind of subdivide that to like, oh, do we take mom's car or dad's car, or do we take a bike, or
Yeah. Yes, I have seen those kind of tools.
let me see if I
Um,
can find it.
so I have seen these kind of tools where people make like boxes and do these kind of like add these pieces. The other one is, where did I see it very recently? It was like an infinite tool where like the more you zoom in, like it was an app where the more you zoom in, like you keep in adding like more and more pieces. I think it is great, but you at some point of time you might even lose track of that as well, unless you have good.
Yeah, M. Kambal shared that in the Slack, a
Okay.
couple days ago, so you can
That,
find it there as well.
that's a thesis Muhammad has been kind of, it's a passion project for him for a while. Was trying to help the translation, again, that you said, that a process to go from idea to knowledge to wisdom. So I think that's, hopefully this moves the needle towards that. So this is a manual process. You know, despite all the little tools that can help, we're just going to have to roll up our sleeves and get into it.
For existing ones, yes. For
Yeah.
future, we can think of things like Slack integration or tools like James is sharing. I
Well,
can also
so
explore more.
actually the problem with the Deliberatorium is that it's a bit outdated at this point. So it's
It looks like it.
yeah, it's
The website looks like from 2000s.
right. Yeah, it's I don't think it's well supported at this point. So we'd have to, like, if we wanted to try to do that, we'd have to kind of use the honor code and emulate it on the wiki or something like that. Just
Yeah.
kind of have people add sort of subtopics under other people's suggestions.
Mhm.
And I don't know exactly how we'd take care of like counting votes. That'd be sort of another issue potentially.
Yeah.
Um, One thing also, so you're talking about integrations, and I was sort of scrolling through here. I haven't used it myself, but I've heard a lot of good things about if this then that.
Yes.
Is that something? I don't know how if
It
that
is
would be
pretty.
useful, but
It is pretty good. So we can use if this and that in terms of like if we post this kind of comment, it goes into a Google Doc, because it has integration on the both ends. Similarly, there was a tool called Zapier, which we were using for some time. Zapier. So
Zapier.
basically all the comments you get, all the comments you get on the updates channel, like not now, but there was a time when like all these updates used to come from Zapier. So Zapier has a list of like hundreds of tools which it gets to talk to each other, and so like um, there's an email notification, and that email then goes to your Google Doc for record, or Evernote, or things like that. So that is something we can also try. And whenever we find an interesting link, instead of pinning it, because pinning also like you lose those pins. So like instead of pinning, like you just use the Zapier app. But Zapier is like they're also like paid. It's not free. So we ran out of the free piece. I exhausted that.
Okay. Now, should we, so it sounds like we should be building maybe a technical profile or a blueprint for moving forward. But going back into the archive, should we start, is there value then in going back? Because there's a ton of content back there, back there being the archive.
I think the simplest. So we have good content in like related work. We have some resources. We have links to like self-organized meetings, and I think I've been asking people that whenever they do that, like they should post the link there. So like that's sort of happening already. One thing which I find missing is like a lot of all these Meteor things, which people forget or are non-accessible. So I think it's not a lot of work to basically post a lot of Meteor links, change the numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like like have those numbers, and just click it once, see what's like, just see, oh, like this was the topic of discussion happening, and like link and just write one line or two lines about what that is. So like basically a page with the 20 links is all that is needed to have like one piece with missing, which is out there, but yet not indexed. I can ask Geza actually to see if like he has already an index of it, because like he's managing Meteor, so maybe he has like an internal link anyway. So like if he has that, like he can quickly post those on a wiki, and then all we have to do is just to write a description, like 1-liner, 2-liner description for each link, so that we don't even have to like actually create that page, so it will already be there. That I'll quickly ask with him, because I think there should be a way, because he has been indexing it for a while now. So let me check with him. And if he declines, like if that is not possible, then yes, it would be like a manual labor worth 2 hours or something, 1 or 2 hours.
Right. Okay. Well, it's getting kind of late here for me, so I should probably head out soon.
Sure. Yeah.
It's late here too, dude.
Yeah, we're in the same time zone. Or I think we are anyway.
So we've got a lot to chew on here. So James, a lot of this. So what can we do to to help? How can we create then? There seems to be working on the archive, evaluating and auditing this technology, interfacing with the folks that are building the internal chat rooms, and then putting in some best practices for moving forward. What sort of format we're going to use. It's going to be that the documentorium kind of thing, or we're going to follow another best practice.
So
Um,
let me share you one thing first.
Yeah.
So you might want to first chat with these girls. Um, they are the ones who are actually going to be integrating the forum sort of thing.
Great.
So this is the Trello board. Um, like if you can give some direction, or like if you can give some feedback to them as they move further, like that would be valuable from that point. I can take, I can talk to Geza first if he can produce like a list of like all the existing Meteor links and put it on a wiki, so that we can then some one of us like I can, or like we all can actually go and like write 2 or 3 sentences for every Meteor task, so that we know like what happened when, and then categorize it on the basis of subject or a discussion. And moving further, I think I can experiment, like this weekend I can experiment a bit with IFTTT and see if like I can somehow integrate a comment to a Google Doc. I think that would be the easiest. That's what comes to my head the first, but I can explore it more. And even if we have like a Google Doc where we are getting all these things listed, that's not too bad, because then we can index that Google Doc from our list, and we can all sort of see what all was shared. And so, so that these are some really quick ideas to get things done for now, because we shouldn't be investing too much. Like it is valuable, but it is not very critical, or it's not the bottleneck, I would say.
Right.
So like for future, like for people who are viewing, or even for us, like when we, like for example, when we start writing the Kai paper, like we might be wanting to revisit all these links which are being shared, because these are the related works, because every paper has a related work section, and so these links might be valuable at that point of time. So instead of like at some point of time, like we will have to revisit some of the things just to find related works, and so this might be the right time. I don't know. There's no right time, but this might be an ideal time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The sooner we do it, the easier it'll be later on.
Yeah. So like, yeah, these are some of the quick and dirty approaches which will get our things done. There's always room for optimizing things, but this is better than nothing. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that sounds. I think that all sounds really good to me.
And if you want to explore any of these things which you talked about, experiment, and you can give feedback to us, and like we can chat. You know.
Yeah, I might try. So, just so that there's a little bit of sort of knowledge base on the wiki, I'm probably going to try to add a couple pages. Like, I think one thing that might be.
Yeah, and whenever you do, and if you think that this page needs to go in the homepage, I think homepage access. I think you don't have access to the homepage, but if you think that this is something we should go on the homepage, I'll add that link. Just ping me and I'll add that link. So,
okay. Yeah. Sure. So one sort of set of pages that I think might be valuable is like we have all of these channels in Slack that sort of represent working groups, and we have kind of brief descriptions of what each of them is on Slack.
So I think people who are already on Slack, like they know what channel is for what, and we don't really allow like anyone else to enter Slack. Slack is invitation only.
Right.
So that might, I don't know.
Were we going to do another round of sort of recruitment or whatever for more participants?
Not now. Like not until Kai for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So that's probably enough then.
Yeah, because it's a huge endeavor to get people on board, and then getting them on pace with everyone else. Like it takes a lot of effort. And
Right.
given that Kai is getting closer, we want to like focus our energy towards that versus like getting new people and then getting them on par with everyone else. So that's
Hmm.
yeah. And even after
Right.
Kai, because like our goal will be to mostly like work on the startup part if that is the direction we are taking. And so like we would want like existing people to be like more motivated and work towards it because they have better idea versus getting new people. Um, so if at all like we have a new recruitment, it would be for a fresh project or a fresh thing, not in this one. That's what I believe. I don't know like if Michael has other plans, but I think that we won't be recruiting anytime soon or at all for um, for this crowd research or like this Dymo or uh, crowd research platform or whatever we're building. So
Okay, so that actually addresses some of my concerns then. So
yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
Awesome.
So whatever archiving we are doing, it is for us. It's not necessarily aimed for new people. It is
Right.
to ease our finding and our discovery when we start to write paper. Um, you know,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Great.
Cool stuff. Wow. I was tired when this conversation started. I am not now. Now I'll have a hard time going to sleep because I'll be thinking about this all night.
That always happens.
Now, wait. Do we have any? I just want to make sure nothing came up in the Slack channel while
I've
we were talking.
I've been checking it periodically. I think we've been most attentive to their needs. We've got some folks that have been. Looks like Michael Bernstein and Jay Silver have been. That's looks like they've been chatting. So
By the way, they used the paper. Uh, they delayed the results, so I think they're
Hmm.
coming on 13th now. It was due today actually,
Right.
um,
any
but
insight
it's
as to why that happened for Jean?
sorry.
Any insight as to what prompted the delay?
I think no, I don't know, but usually it is when reviewers delayed the reviews or they had like more than expected number of submissions. So those kind of things often causes delay. It is not very normal, but yes, that happens. I've had that happen.
I think did Neil mention that it was because they had a high number of submissions?
Okay, so yeah, that can be the reason.
They were just overwhelmed by our awesomeness and needed a moment to recover. I prefer to
Yeah,
think that the real reason. All right. Rajan, thank you, dude.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. A lot of stuff here. So James, how do you want to do it? You want to drive this puppy, or what sort of collaborative support can we provide you?
Um, let's see how it goes. How much we can automate with like the stuff that Rajan was talking about, like pulling up making an index of the Meteor links, stuff like
Yeah, so
that.
yeah, so I'll ask Geza first, and then I'll let you know like if there's something he can do. Otherwise, like we'll move to like our backup plan, which is manual. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah. So stuff like that we can kind of wait on.
And feel free
If
to try like Slack integrations. I think that is something you can explore. Um, Apart from like if then IFTTT, if you think there's something else like that is also something we can explore.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other thing, I still think it might be kind of valuable to have sort of short wiki pages that just kind of
Sure,
collect
sure, sure.
on a specific topic, like reputation inflation, or
Yeah,
rating
yeah.
inflation, stuff like that. So, um, I guess as things come to me, I'll try to make pages like that, and I can kind of maybe DRI that next week. I don't want to set like a goal because I can't say like, oh, 10 topics. Like, however many topics people come up with to kind of add, that's fine. And then sort of linking them to each other so that it's somewhat browsable, that's good. But sort of like Rajan, like you're saying, I don't think it's great to commit too much effort to this because we have lots of other priorities as well.
Yeah. This is a good to have thing. It's not super critical at the moment.
Right.
But
Okay.
when it does become critical, we should at least be
Ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have made some progress at least. Yeah.
Yes.
The longer we wait, the more content we have to go back and
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
and create.
No, I've always been concerned about it, and I've tried mostly relying on Wiki and sort of good faith that whenever somebody does some stuff, like they will add to the Wiki. That's what I've been mostly doing, because there were moments when like people started creating like so many Google Docs. There's this, there's that, and I was like, whoa, like how will I like manage all of this? So yeah, there's less of this now, but there was a period when a lot of new documents were generated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, it being 12:30, let's shut the
All right.
coffee down. So James, Rajan, Jay Silver, thank you everyone.
Yeah.
We'll stop broadcasting. We'll share the YouTube with folks and keep the conversation going.
Yeah, and like this is a self-organized meeting, so it should go in the self-organized meeting link thing.
Right.
I will put it in your calendar, so it popped up. So
Yeah.
I'll hold it.
All right.
All right, everyone. Hey, thank you so much for the time. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Good
See
stuff.
you. Yeah.
Take care.
Ciao.
Bye.